Hello, Flames, and welcome to another edition of the Forever a Flame podcast, where we hear from a Lee alum and get to hear a little bit about their story. And today we are pleased to be joined on the couch by Steven McClellan. He is a teacher at Cleveland Middle School and an author. Steven, it's great to see you, man. How are you?
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm good, doing well. Our little baby's not feeling well, so I'm running on fumes. But besides that,
so you didn't get much sleep last night?
No, not a lot of sleep. But
other than that, well, it's going around, but we hope it feels better soon. Yeah. But hey, here we are. Let's talk first about how you ended up coming to Lee University. So tell us a little bit about that story. What got you on campus? You were a standout basketball player. I'm sure that had a lot to do with it. But tell us a little bit about what brought you to Lee University.
Yeah, I think it was, looking back, I think it was always part of God's plan. Yeah. You know, it was interesting. Lee recruited me for basketball out of high school. And instead I went to the Air Force Academy prep school for a year. Okay. And then Lee recruited me out of that year, and instead I went to play at UT Chattanooga for a year. And then that third year, Coach Tommy Brown at the time called me up, and he said, all right, this is like third time's a charm. Right. And I was looking to transfer again. And so it just worked out that, that third year, I transferred to Lee 2008 and played 3 years here at Lee. And so it was basketball driven, but concerning academics, concerning obviously the spiritual environment, that all, even the size of the school, all of that I resonated with. It was a perfect fit. Those were things that were important to me and factors that I really, really enjoyed about my experience. So really, that's why I look back and I'm like, all along, it was going to be Lee, and I had to divert a little bit, to get there, but it ended up being an amazing experience. So I'm grateful looking back.
Now, did you grow up around here, or?
I grew up in Blue Ridge, Georgia, was my childhood, and then I moved to Dalton. And so Dalton's right down the road there. And so it wasn't too far of a trip for me. So that was nice, being close to home. Family can see you play.
Absolutely.
And so I'm very close to my family. So that was a cool element as well.
So before we get into your career path, let's talk a little bit about the shot. Yeah. The incredible shot that we were saying off air is really one of the iconic Lee University basketball moments. So we've actually got a clip of it. We'll show a clip right here.
To shoot. Cutter driving, kicks to James, back to Cutter, head fakes on the three, 6 seconds to shoot. Out top, McClellan for the three. Yes! Steven McClellan hits it. Timeout called by Mountain State. Oh, this place is going to explode.
You guys are facing the number one team in the country in Mountain State, right? So the gym is packed. Obviously, the arena is packed, going crazy. Time's winding down. Ball's in your hand. Take us through what's going through your mind, and then you make the shot. The crowd goes crazy. It's just one of those moments that, like, every kid dreams about, and here you are hitting the three-pointer that knocks off the number one team.
And looking back, I think what a lot of people don't know is the build-up. You know, a lot of times it's looked at as that one shot, but we had actually started that season, I think, 4-4. Which by Lee standards, 4 wins, 4 losses is not the standard. Every team, you have the soccer team at the time is winning national championships, and it was a very discouraging start in a lot of ways. And so we'd actually gotten together as a team for a team meeting to say, how can we turn things around? There had been a lot of controversy, a lot of tension on the team. And so coming out of that team meeting, I think we went on a 13-game win streak, I think. Wow. And it kind of culminated with that shot. And so as I look back, I look more of the journey of the team as a whole. That's pretty cool. This emotional journey, right, that got us to that point. And I tell people I was in the right place at the right time. And because I think I was actually talking to Dr. Cook about this, and he had referenced, this is years ago, he referenced how he'd use that video to teach kind of a moral or lesson out of it. And he told me, he said, no, you just weren't in the right place at the right time. Like, you sought that out. And it was an intentional, you went to the space that was open. And so we had a play drawn up, the play broke down, and, you're taught, hey, you go find the open space so your man can find you. And so that's what I did. And he saw me. I was fortunate enough that he saw me. And so I hit that shot. And, at the time, you're just wanting to win a game. It's a big game. I think that looking back and seeing some of the legacy there is a very cool thing that, you don't anticipate, but you're definitely grateful for, in hindsight. So it's definitely really a special moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those moments that just really sticks out when you think of Lee University basketball, and the crowd was incredible. They stormed the court. You knock off the number one team. But, just kind of one of those cool moments. I didn't know the backstory there, talking about the slow start there that you guys had. And I think that was even more cements, kind of the incredible moment that was. When it left your hands, did you know it was in? Was it one of those shots?
When I left my hand, I said, you just missed the biggest shot of your career. I left my hand, I literally said, you had, and your brain works so quickly.
Oh,
I
yeah,
said,
in those moments,
in those moments, in the split second.
It's almost like time stops, right?
Yeah,
like
you had a chance to hit this shot. You had the right moment. Everything was set up good. You were found open, and you just messed it up because I thought I shot it too hard, and I thought it was going to bounce right back to me. And so when I hit it, it was surreal.
Yeah.
When they stormed the court, I actually got tackled, and I was at the bottom. If you watch the clip to get to that point, it's almost like I get tackled and trampled on, and then you had a new thought of I just hit the biggest shot of my career, and
now I'm injured.
Now I'm about to die. I had the biggest shot of my career, and I'm not going to make it out of this. So a lot of emotions, that night. But it was such a fun night.
Yeah, great night in Walker Arena. So, but you came to Lee. Did you studied to entered into education? Is that where you?
Yes, history major.
History major. So that was the path you chose. So take us through on the academic side. Some of the people that influenced you to choose that course and how that academic journey went.
Yeah, it was really cool. So my history teacher in high school was also my basketball coach.
Okay.
Very influential, and his style of teaching was identical to Dr. Barnett.
Oh,
and so
great.
When I got to Lee University and I took Dr. Barnett's class, that was almost this surreal moment of I've been prepared for this, but that was the style I was used to learning from. Very story driven.
Yep.
Very, personal, and so Dr. Coates was my advisor. Dr. Barnett, took both of their classes a lot, and so those are two of my favorite teachers.
I was going to say those are two pretty good ones for a history guy.
And I like because I'm very detail oriented, and so when it came to the very specific and detailed, Dr. Coates was down that avenue. When it came to the broader step out, in the story driven, and that was Dr. Barnett, and so both of those complement each other so well with my personal style of learning. And so I graduated with my undergraduate in history, and then immediately started the MAT program here at Lee.
Great.
And graduated with that in 2014. So I have a master's degree in education, and then my specific area is middle grades, 4th through 8th.
Okay, great. So middle school, man, you willingly chose middle. And listen, I've been a youth pastor, so it's a passion of mine as well. But it's a tough age group.
It is, yeah.
What made you choose middle school?
The irony is that I wanted to study American history in high school,
Yeah.
but the way the path led, it was always the jobs I got offered were middle school,
Okay.
world history, and so at first it was where the job takes you and where can I get a job.
Sure.
This is 15 years. I just finished my 14th year teaching, and 15 years ago, finding a teaching job was so intense. But then over the last few years, it's settled in that area, and I think that every area has its challenge. Elementary, middle, high school.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But it has so many rewarding aspects to it, and so this is my 9th year. I've been at Cleveland Middle School.
Okay.
And so I teach 7th grade world history there. So
What's been one of your prouder moments in your teaching career so far? Is there a moment that sticks out where you're like, you see a student kind of finally get it, the light bulb goes on, or you have this, maybe this, every year's different, but was there a certain year that really sticks out as far as like, this is why I do what I do?
If any of my administration is watching, when they academically, when they did well on a test, that was the moment. But I tell them, I said, I can teach you world history.
Yeah.
But the goal is that when you walked in those doors to start the year, you are a better person when you walk out the doors at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And I said, that's the whole goal. And so I think whether it is seeing that personal transformation, maturity, whether that's seeing, a growth mindset, a change in, mindset or habit or even lifestyle, I think those are the moments I tend to focus on. And I think really you see that with the notes, the ones who are more serious about it, the ones who I think have developed that, rapport with you and that you've been able to influence on a higher level. I think the notes you get that, you get the casual notes of, students thanking you and,
Right.
we love you, we'll miss you, favorite teacher. But then you get the notes of students who list specific areas where they were struggling in life. I started here, here's where I'm at now.
Yeah.
And so I think I've gotten a few notes throughout the years of students there. And that's, I think, what stands out when I look back is, because I'm looking at what are lives. And I know you don't always see transformation, you don't always see the lives you impacted, but when you do, that tends to stick with you longer. And so I've been fortunate to have a few students that really, that really were going through a difficult time, and the journey they went on, personally, spiritually, was really special to see. So
I think that's the thing that makes me so proud as the alumni relations director. When you look at our public schools just here in this area, or many of the private schools, you have such an influence of Lee teachers, and just outstanding educators. My daughter's third grade. My daughter didn't want to leave third grade. I mean, what third grader doesn't want to start summer? But she didn't want to leave third grade because of the impact that her teacher, a Lee alum, was making on her life. And so I think that just speaks to the fact that it's like you said, so much more than I'm teaching you a subject matter. I'm teaching you history, these are all important things. However, it's also that influence that you get to play in a child's life, particularly a middle schooler, where, man, there's a lot of that's a pipital time period where a lot of growth takes place, and it can be a tough time, for middle school. We all know, being middle schoolers. So, all right, so let's shift gears now. Let's talk a little bit about your family. Obviously, family's important to you. So tell us how the family developed.
So my wife Megan, met her in 2013.
Which, by the way, shout out to Megan, who.
I would not be sitting here if it were
right.
not.
Yeah, you've got to, I know she's your spouse, but also, the booking agent, I think, right?
I would say, if the good Lord ever opens up the door and I, she'll be my PR rep.
PR rep, no, she was outstanding.
Be a good title there. There'll be no pay raise to it, but it'll be,
we're in this together.
We're in it. But no, I met her in 2013. She went to Lee. And I did not meet her at Lee. She was best friends actually in high school with one of my friends that I played at here at Lee, and so it was a mutual connect or a mutual friendship that actually got us introduced. So met her. I was actually moving overseas to teach in Indonesia.
Wow.
Bandung, Indonesia, and that is when we actually met, and so the timing was not ideal. But
I'm going to be halfway around the world.
It was you're an amazing person. I see a future here, but I'm moving. Yes, literally 12-hour time difference, and so really that's what started it. But then after 2 years, I moved back, and I think that was timing with teaching at the school I was at. It wasn't strictly because I felt that I was, that it was, I loved Megan. It wasn't strictly because of that relationship. I think that God had just worked it out. It was time for me to leave that school after the 2 years I was there. And so amazing experience, but came back in 2016, and that's when Megan and I got married. And so we've lived here in Cleveland ever since. And our little boy, Carson Bowe, just turned 14 months old. And so yes, we have one child, and live here in Cleveland.
Shout out to Carson. Not feeling well today, but
he double ear infection. That'll get you.
That'll get you.
First time he's ever had this happen. So the first time it hits.
The first time it hits,
it's always tough.
Especially at that age, that can be tough. So, but no, your story. It's everybody talks about. A lot of stories at Lee is like, I met my wife at Lee.
Mine's the ring by spring.
Mine's kind of similar to you. I actually met my wife. She went to Lee as well, but we didn't meet. We didn't start dating until after.
Which is a cool
graduated.
element because you still had all those similaries. You had you knew a lot of the same people, but then you still were on your own journey in a way. But you still see how it blended together. So that's a neat aspect.
Yeah, very similar story there. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, not only are you a well-respected educator here in town and at Cleveland Middle School doing a great work there, you are also an author. Yes. So take us through that passion and that journey, and we'll talk a little bit here in a minute about some of the books that you've written. But how did that come about?
Yeah, when I actually played a pretty important part because basketball had been the dream, and then when basketball ended, I think I so quickly jumped into I graduated at Lee in the summer of 2011, and literally days later I was already student teaching here in town, to pursue the educational side of things.
Right.
And so I think I hadn't processed ending that journey with basketball, but about 6 months later it hit me, when the new season started and I was not playing. And I think there was that void there of something to drive me, something to push me. What's the bigger vision? What's the bigger goal? I did look at teaching as that is the calling I'm supposed to step into, in the day-to-day, but I felt there was still a bigger vision that I was, wanted to pursue. And so I did a lot of self-reflection, and I sat down one night and really it became abundantly clear that passion for writing, which I'd had since childhood, but I kind of put on the back burner in basketball and just athletics were the pursuit, that became obvious that was still the passion I had. And so really it was how do you recreate yourself? How do you find a new dream? How do you reinvent yourself, in that way. And so I started to pursue writing more seriously. And when I was overseas in Indonesia, that's when I finished my first novel, which didn't actually get published, but that kind of proved to myself I can do this, and God has laid things on my heart, to say. And so when I moved back, it was in 2018 is when I published my first book. And I've published since then I've had 4 books total. I have 2 novels, 1 children's book, and then I just published my first nonfiction book.
Well, that's incredible, and I love it. And we'll talk about those books here in just a minute. But I love what you said there. I think that's an important point, is that sometimes in life you've got to reinvent yourself a little bit, right? And one chapter ends and another chapter begins. And from my work in athletics, and I've been around student athletes for a number of years, some handle that transition better than others, right?
Yeah.
To your point, there is a bit of a void when you are, especially when you compete at a high level like a collegiate athlete or even a professional athlete. That's all you've known for the majority of your life, right?
Yeah.
And it's been a driving passion, and it's consumed your time and your energy. And then when that chapter ends, like it can be tough on student athletes. Okay, what's next? What do I do next? How do I keep that fire burning? And I love that you talk about finding that in a passion that's always been there for you, but now you had time to really kind of pursue that. And so I think that's a pretty important point for people to understand.
Well, and a lot of people, it's competitive, the competitive drive.
Yeah.
I've seen that a lot. So they pursue coaching, and at first I think a lot of people assume that would be it.
Yeah.
And so I had coaching opportunities, and I learned very quickly that my passion for basketball had not translated to coaching.
It's a different thing, right? Yeah.
And I still coached for several years, but I found that is not where my true passion was. And so then you get to, okay, where do I want to reinvest my time?
Yeah.
And so that was something I learned, was that it wasn't necessarily the competitive edge that I was pursuing. That void was more about what is a bigger vision of who I want to become.
Right.
And I realized with that, that's what led me down this path of writing and wanting to invest in people and instill value into people. So, so it was cool, the journey there. And I found that once I started writing, that kind of the competitive edge of me, wasn't even an element anymore, which is kind of surprising, being involved in basketball. But I think there was still that void being met, but in a different way.
In a different way, yeah. That's a great. So let's talk about the books. Let's highlight a little bit. So tell us a little bit about some of your published work and some of the things that what are the books about, and what really kind of sparked those.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I didn't really know what my avenue was until I started writing. And then hindsight, I look back and it was like, oh, so that's kind of the area that I tend to focus on the most. And, the first book, To Dance, it's a Christian fiction novel. And it's written from a dual perspective. The first part of the book is from a 10-year-old's perspective. The second part is from his mother's perspective. And essentially these two journey to an alternate reality to learn how to cope with pain, make sense of tragedy, find significance in suffering.
Okay.
And so even writing that book, I saw immediately, this is not the rom-com, fun, lighthearted, that sometimes you see. And so I was like, this is a more focused book. It's more intentional about how do you navigate through those trials and those tragedies that we often experience.
Yeah.
And so when I wrote my second book, The Space Between Fire and Ashes, that's more of a young adult contemporary book, not necessarily down the avenue of Christian fiction, but it still incorporates a lot and interweaves a lot of themes that are spiritually driven. And that book was about 2 teenagers who inadvertently foil each other's plans to end their own lives. And so they go on this journey together to try to heal from pain and find freedom from their past. And so especially after those first 2 books, I saw that the idea of pain is something that I resonate with. And, I think we've all had tragedies, we've all faced difficult times, and it wasn't that I had, faced overly, these times that were so much more than other people, and I can speak to that so much more than other people. I think that what I found through my journey is that I've resonated with that because pain to me is an area that either pushes people closer to God or pushes them farther away.
Right.
Our ability or inability to cope with pain, to navigate through it, to understand the perspective to have, I think that is what is what a lot of people struggle with. And so trying to mentor people through that process, especially students now, who I think, it's a pivotal time in their lives to try to navigate through things. I found that was kind of, the area that was down my alley. That was my avenue. And so some people ask me, your books are kind of dark, or your books are kind of like, they got these themes that are intense. And I was like, but I don't know how to write, any other way. And that, I was like, I wish I had that fun rom-com that you want. but yeah, so I think that the books by nature are a little more serious.
Yeah.
But I found that to me, what I resonate with and the the lessons that I've learned in my own life. That's just kind of how it fleshes out in the pages, as I write. And so the children's book is lighthearted. It's called The Bat and the Mule. That one is a little more chill.
Okay, so let's talk just. You go from, kind of these deeper themes of, more serious issues and writing to, audiences that are dealing with this to a children's book. So what was the genesis behind that?
I struggled because when I was talking to a literary agent. My bigger vision actually was to eventually to be able to step into writing full time. And the advice the agent gave me after publishing my first book was stick with one genre.
Yeah.
Establish yourself in that, and then once you're established, you can venture outside of it. But I found that I couldn't do that, and it was frustrating for me at the time because I found that I couldn't write what I wasn't passionate about, and it happened to be that each project as they came to me, I got so excited and so passionate about each project was in a different genre. And I do think that might have hurt me a little bit, when it comes to establishing, the platform you're going for. But I just found that at the time, it actually had started with children's books. I love to write children's books. And so I had, written 5 or 6 that I really enjoyed. I just kind of pushed them aside.
Yeah.
And so one day, one of them, the idea circled back to me, and I got really excited about this book that I'd already written, and I wanted to go back through it. And so it just happened to be I took a break from novels and focused on, something that was a little lighter and shorter, to go through. And so I published The Bat and the Mule, and that was, I guess, a nice little reprieve from the intricate, spending months and even years on a project. That was a nice, break from some of that.
How special is it to you that your son will get a chance to read a book?
It's exciting. I've tried already, and he is I don't know what it is. We're praying through it. It's like I'll come and open up a book and be like, here you go, Carson.
Yeah.
And he'll close the cover. He don't. So
he'll grow into that.
I'm like, here's The Bat and the Mule.
Yeah.
Your daddy wrote this, and he will toss the book aside and want to go to play. And so I'm like, one day I'm always calling after him. One day you'll appreciate.
One day, yes.
So one
will.
day he will appreciate. But yeah, to that point, it's exciting because. At the time I write, I always knew Megan and I talked about having children, but you don't know what the road leads. You don't know where God's going to take you and if He'll allow that. And so now seeing you do have a child, it is going to be that special moment. And I do plan to publish more children's books. So hopefully I'll have, a little collection by the time he's really old enough to be, reading on his own that he can read through. So that'll be cool.
That's fantastic. And this is your most recent work, right?
Yes, sir. Demons Know My Name. That's a nonfiction book.
Demons Know My Name. So take us through this. I actually read a little bit about the background of this book, but take us through this book and what kind of spurred you on to write this.
Yeah, so I had not published a book since 2021, and this book I'd been working on since then, and it's really been a passion of mine. We were with a friend back in 2021, and she had this kind of Bible-thumping grandmother that, that will just tell it to you like it is and shoot you straight. And the girls had been talking about their journey, and the grandmother simply said, but do the demons know your name? And just kind of this what do you think you're doing? You think you're serious about your faith, but do the demons know your name? And my friend was telling me this story in that one line, but did the demons know your name? And it just stuck with me. And so as I started to kind of flesh this idea out, in our culture today, I would say everybody who's on a journey of faith, right? But especially the students, whether it's middle school, high school, college, just the culture that as culture progresses, that we're in, as influences progress and what people face, I would say that high schoolers today are facing temptations and these influences that I didn't even have to face till I was in college or adulthood, and you start to see everything people are exposed to, it just is filtering down younger and younger. And so I just had this conviction, looking back at my own life and areas that I had not taken my faith seriously, and then teaching, with it right in front of me, and I could see day to day areas that I felt like there was the disconnect, this gap between what we say and who we are. Mm-hmm. And so I just felt called to write this book that essentially is a rally cry for teenagers to elevate their faith and to take their faith more seriously. I think the tagline is,
I love that.
A practical guide to elevating your faith and becoming a serious threat to the enemy. And so that's what I hope to do. So the target audience, I say, the principles span age, you can apply to anybody, but the target audience is high schoolers in this sense.
Absolutely. And what's the best way to get your books?
So you can order them online anywhere books are sold. They're online at Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Target, Walmart, Amazon. But that would be, they're not in stores right now at those, so you just have to order them online.
Okay.
But yeah, and a lot of people, Amazon's a popular place people go to, but technically it's anywhere books are sold, they can order them.
Well, brand new book here by Lee alum Steven McClellan, Demons Know My Name, a practical guide to elevating your faith and becoming a serious threat to the enemy. Make sure to go check it out, read it yourself, buy it for a young person in your life that you know would benefit from this book. Steven, I think it's so great to sit down with you and chart your story that goes from, being a student athlete, hitting an iconic shot in Walker Arena to knock off a number one team in the country, one of those great Lee basketball moments, to a fantastic educator in our public school system and an author. Man, keep up the great work. It was so great to talk with you, share a little bit about your story, and man, you're what being a Lee alum is all about, doing things with excellence in all you do. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, make sure to go to Amazon, get Steven McClellan's books. If you got kids, he's writing children's books too. What children's book? The Bull and the Mule?
The Bat and the Mule.
The Bat and the Mule. I'm sorry. Maybe the sequel will be The Bull and the Mule.
You're giving me inspiration.
I'm giving you
inspiration.
Right. Steven McClellan, make sure to go check out his books on Amazon. We are proud of Steven and all the great things that he's doing as an educator and an author, and hitting one of the more iconic shots in Lee basketball history to knock off Mountain State. Great moment. Steven, thanks so much.
I appreciate you.
Thank you for joining us on yet another edition of the Forever Aflame podcast. Make sure to watch some other episodes that you may have missed. You can check those out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and we hope to see you soon on another episode of the Forever Aflame podcast. Go Flames.